I hear talk about you cut the capital budget. You cut the capital budget. Well, which is it? You want us to continue the deficit and spend more in the capital budget, increase the deficit? Or you want us to be responsible and don't spend where you need to spend? It wasn't our decision to terminate the Grenadian nursing school. Save the sanctimony for, according to the member for St. Andrew Northwest, for when you get the moral authority to come and talk to us in this matter. When we got into office, on paper there was supposed to be a contingency fund where a certain percentage of funds from the investment migration or CBI revenues were supposed to be put aside for contingency. There was no such fund in reality, and there was zero sum in the account. We came to Parliament, amended the law to reduce the amount, and we've since complied. So there's $61 million in that account sitting at the Eastern Caribbean Central Bank. Mr. Speaker, if I may respond, I think first to the concept of the cognitive dissonance that the member for St. Patrick West so eloquently referred to yesterday. And I hope you would bear with me if I attempt to paraphrase what he said. You see, yesterday, if he stood and described yesterday as a brilliant, sun-shining, wonderful day, the average person would look at the MP for St. Patrick West and said, something is clearly wrong with him. And similarly, if he stood today, looked outside and said it is thunderstorms, rain, thunder, lightning, they would similarly say something is wrong with him. And so when I hear the learned member of Parliament for the term of St. George stand and says, we need to hold politicians accountable, I'm having some cognitive dissonance myself, because unless he's not a politician, unless he's not the member for the term of St. George, I find it remarkable that he doesn't seem to think he needs to be held accountable as a member of Parliament for the term of St. George. He took an hour, did a presentation, said he was thanking the people of the term of St. George. He seemed to have forgotten that he's gotten $240,000 as a constituency allowance, and doesn't seem to think accountability involves explaining to the people of the town of St. George what he's done with the constituency funds. So if you want to talk about holding politicians, and I assume he's describing all of us here, accountable, the easiest thing is to start with self. I would have thought he was going to say, so Mr. Speaker, when an old lady or a young person comes to me seeking medication, I take out the constituency allowance and I pay. I didn't hear that. So when we come and we say we want the quality of the debate to be improved, we want to work together, we are working together. When we decided to improve parliamentary democracy, it is committees made up of both sides of the House that agreed to the 10,000 constituency allowance, so that we could work for the persons who elected us. So let us show what accountability is like. And I start, Mr. Speaker, by acknowledging, first and foremost, and in order of priority and importance, the constituents of St. David who have elected me to serve as a member of Parliament for that great parish. I thank them for giving me the opportunity. And Mr. Speaker, if you will bear with me, before we get into the national budget debate, I think it is important for me to report to them and to account to them and to explain to them that the office of the Prime Minister and ministers are really afterthoughts. Because if you're not a leader of a party, you don't become Prime Minister. If you're not an MP, you can't become a Minister of Government. And there's no guarantee that as an MP, you'll be a Minister of Government. And there's no guarantee that your party will have the majority seat. So if we're talking about being in the same boat, but by partisanship. This is the House. We are all MPs, first and foremost. There is no greater privilege for an MP on this side of the House or on that side. The salaries are the same. The constituency allowance are the same. And the type of vehicles that were procured are the same. So let us start with that accountability and that transparency before we talk about the ministers and the government. So, Mr. Speaker, I wish to speak to some of the things that has been taking place in the parish of St. David, so that we understand that ultimately, when we talk about things like what is the process for people to take part in the budget consultations, how do we ensure people's participation? Well, we ensure people's participation by meeting with them, by having the village meetings, the community engagements, by me leaving at 4 p.m. in the afternoon every Friday, when most people would probably want to lie and drink a beer, and sitting in a community center and inviting the residents of St. David's to sit with me and ask questions and make their suggestions and make their recommendations. By having the town hall meetings, the community meetings, the community engagements, by walking the streets, by knocking on doors, by sitting in the constituency offices that the Parliament provides for, and hearing and listening to our constituents for as long as they come. And in my case, obviously because I'm the Prime Minister, they come from all over. St. Mark, St. Patrick, Gov, it doesn't matter. I haven't heard anybody even saying they do that. So the member may not know that the Minister of Finance, the budget team, the policy team, every budget required by law goes to the communities, to the parishes. They go to the Chamber of Commerce, Employers Federation, the diaspora. They hold Zoom meetings. They invite the public to come and say what you want to see in the budget. Obviously, the member for the Tongue of St. George doesn't take part in it, is apparently not aware, so he assumes that somehow the budget is top down. To the contrary, it is bottom up. And I want to thank the PS in the Ministry of Finance and his team for the enormous amount of work that they put in, year in, year out, in preparation of the budgets. And this transcends which administration is in office, because it's required by law and they comply with it. So it's important, Mr. Speaker, for those who say we should read, to read themselves. There's an entire paragraph in the Minister of Finance presentation in which she talks about the consultations that are held in relation to the budget. So, Mr. Speaker, in the constituency of St. David's, the wash bathroom project for 2025, I'm not counting 24 and 23. We've had 13 units with 30 beneficiaries in a village known as the Coconut in Current. In Berriton, Belle Plaine, 33 units benefiting 80 beneficiaries. In Mardi Gras, 12 are completed and 11 is under construction. In Tebaid, 2 are completed and 3 are under construction. And so you see, Mr. Speaker, I just want to pause here because there are areas, for example, in this village in Mardi Gras. If you drive on the road, you will not know this village exists. You have to walk and see a track because you have to walk through people's yard. And then when you get there and you see the condition that young children, that senior citizens live in, you have no choice, Mr. Speaker, but to want to ensure that you help. Not one, or not the one you think supporting you. As the member for St. Andrew Northwest pointed out, was the prior bathroom and toilet program where an MP individually, subjectively decides I'm helping this person. and I'm not helping that person, which then breeds animosity within the community. But when you go into a village and you recognize the simple criteria they don't have, you don't therefore go and pick one and leave the other out. You help all. And Mr. Speaker, this is not just about bathroom and toilet. There's a reason we call it WASH. We say water, access, sanitation in homes. Many of these homes hitherto would never have even had running water. So they're getting running water. Some of them would not have had electricity. They're getting electricity. They have been taught how to clean the bathrooms and the toilet. And we may take these things for granted. But Mr. Speaker, if you've never had indoor washroom facilities, you will simply not know how to clean it. And I don't mean to be graphic, but this was brought home to me when some of the kids volunteered to help us clean a community center. And they took them up and they put them up in the toilet, pulled it out of the toilet, and then decided to mop the floor with it. So, Mr. Speaker, this is about dignity. This is about uplifting our communities. And that is why, Mr. Speaker, we will continue with the program. You can investigate nation builders all you want. You are welcome to do so. You just have to remember to keep the faith. And the faith we shall keep, because this is a national issue. There are in excess of 8,000 households who still do not have access to indoor bathrooms and toilet in Grenadian. And therefore, I trust in the spirit of bipartisanship that maybe some of the constituency allowance that you have could be used towards helping with the bathroom and toilet initiative. That maybe you would see the wisdom in using the pickups to help drag the sand and the gravel and the steel and the blocks that are required to help your constituents who don't have access to indoor sanitation and plumbing, which presumably you have. Mr. Speaker, in the Bellevue area, where I grew up and went to primary school, we are currently installing the Bellevue Play Park. We've installed in many other places, Lassages and Barrett and Malmont. This is a national initiative as well. From Carriacou to St. Patrick to St. John, we recognize that our young people, our kids, the parents, the grandparents need play parks. As soon as I became Prime Minister, a young child wrote me a letter asking me whether, as Prime Minister, I would be developing more play parks, more parks for children in Grenada. It is needed. So this is ongoing, and we will be engaging in wider development. Right next to the play park, Mr. Speaker, we are establishing for the first time the Bellevue Music School. So I heard my friend talking about the creativity of our people and the achievements in the absence of any kind of structured program. He obviously is not aware that it is this government that has created the Office of the Creative Affairs. And that the creation of the music school in St. David and other music schools that will be created is in fact part of a structural approach to support, encourage the development of our creatives. He's probably not aware that in Tantine, in the town of St. George, ComSpan was launched. I'm sure you can't miss the widening of the bottom of the Old Fort Road in the town of St. George, which is taking place right now. Something that is historic, because for all my life, having gone to Presentation Brothers College, it is very difficult for two vehicles to exit and enter the Old Fort Lucas Street intersection. And if you go there now, you would see that the work is taking place in the widening. So if you want key performance indicators, I don't know what else could be more glaring than a key performance indicator that after centuries of this narrow intersection, it is being widened. So, Mr. Speaker, the Bellevue Community Center will be upgraded in 2026 as part of this process. I wish to thank the Embassy of the People's Republic of China for the support that they've provided to us in relation to the Bellevue Music School and in relation to the play parks which have been erected throughout St. David's. Construction work on the St. Dominic's RC School under the BNTF is taking place. Mr. Speaker, people come here and they talk about things, mismanagement and poor management and supervision and what have you. And to try and create the impression as if the Minister for Infrastructure himself is a contractor, or the consultant, or the supervisor, or as if we don't live in the real world. A lawyer will tell a client, when you walk into a courtroom, the lawyer only has control over the case he could present. He has no control over the judge. He has no control over what the other side is going to do. And in that dynamic situation, there are always things that can go awry. There are always things that can be unpredictable. And let me give an example of what I'm talking about in the case of the St. Dominic's School. This is a project where you have a consultant and a contractor. The consultant is supposed to test and supervise the work, including things like the strength and the quality of the concrete. We have a situation where the concrete was poured. The consultant flagged the question of whether or not the concrete was at the appropriate strength. They allowed the concrete to cure. Months pass, and then the consultant says to the contractor, demolish the concrete because I am not satisfied that it's at the appropriate strength. You think the Minister of Infrastructure could stop this? That is the kind of challenges you have when you have construction projects. And when you have professionals who are hired and oftentimes paid a lot of money, either themselves not professional, or their egos, or the interpersonal relationship hinders. And this is something that is taking place every day. In fact, in relation to the St. David's Catholic Secondary School, which is under construction, when the contractor was awarded the job after the procurement and the tendering process, the contractor wrote to us and said, if you hire this consultant, I am walking away from the job. I am not even taking the contract. I am leaving the $30 or $20 million contract on the table because I don't want to deal with this consultant. Because in their view, the consultant is counterproductive, he's not helpful, he will cause delays in the project, and they prefer not to take on the stress. This is the kinds of stuff you have to manage and deal with. So this is not the land of the blind, and so you have one eye and you become king. Explain. You've been there. You've been there for decades. You know the challenges. So to pretend that construction is simple or easy or you can snap your fingers, it is not. And even with those challenges, Mr. Speaker, and I give an example, the St. Dominic's RC School is taking place. The construction work is taking place, even with these kinds of challenges. Construction of the lower retaining wall, which is right next to the school, but the road had collapsed. Almost similar to the Molineux situation. The retaining wall has been built, the project is completed, the road is open. Nawasa, improvements, things that impact people in the village of Akwetu, in the mountains of St. David, a village that never had Nawasa pipe-borne water. When I first entered public life and we held community meetings, that's one of the issues the residents raised. They had their own water system. Working collaboratively with Nawasa and the residents, we have now been able to have water supplied by Nawasa to the residents. Mr. Speaker, Nawasa presented the costing options to the residents. To encourage the residents to come onto the system, I told them I would use the constituency allowance funds to ensure that I help subsidize the cost of the water connection. That is accountability. That is transparency. That is things happening that impacts the lives of the people who matter. So you see, Mr. Speaker, if we are all politicians and we're talking about transparency and accountability, let us start with ourselves. And if we start with ourselves, then it puts us in a position where we will have the moral authority to call upon others to account. So, just so we understand, Mr. Speaker, this project in Apwe 2 is impacting 77 households. The average household in Grenada is at least 3 persons. So you can do the math. With assistance from the Constituency Allowance Fund. Constituency Allowance Fund. So, Mr. Speaker, you know, I can go on and on about various things that are happening in St. David. But I'd like to take one example. My father played cricket. He represented in those days the Combined Islands, which was the Windward and Leeward Islands. There are other persons not present today who perhaps I would even say is both a player and a fanatic fan of cricket. I played a little myself until I got short-sighted and couldn't continue the risk of having to retire hurt like the comrade. But cricket was not just a sport, Mr. Speaker. We understood the importance of cricket to the psyche of the West Indian. And we have to ensure that our young people understand that it's not just sport, perhaps unlike football or even basketball, and why it holds such significance to us. And so the revitalization of cricket, not just from the sporting perspective, but from the perspective of our psyche, is important. So together with volunteers, Mr. Speaker, we've started a cricket school in Laura, in St. David, called Joy's Cricket School, Journey of Youth. And Mr. Speaker, the volunteers, the coaches, the parents, every Saturday, bring the kids, boys and girls, to teach them the fine skill set of cricket. The constituency allowance funds are used to support that, Mr. Speaker, by transportation, by providing refreshments for the students, by ensuring you have gears and so on. In fact, Mr. Speaker, I met a young lady who was working in a bank and resigned her job from the bank because she has a dream of becoming a female professional cricketer. And she's going to the academy. So, Mr. Speaker, when we travel and I visit Grenada, I'm aware of the fact that Grenadians love cricket. I'm aware of the fact of the importance of cricket to us. That is why the 1,000 cricket kits from Mr. Aliko Dangote was delivered to all of Grenada. So some of us may live here, but it appears that the cognitive dissonance continues. So let's talk again about things that matter and national programs that have local impact, because they say all politics is local. The land regularization, led by the best minister, the Member of Parliament, for St. Andrew Southwest. You know, Mr. Speaker, you have people living in Lakadou since after Hurricane Ivan. Homes built via the kind compliments of the Bolivarian Republic, known as Venezuela. Small homes on plots either owned by the government of Grenada or the Housing Authority that have been there for over 2 decades, that people live in. In the afternoon, it gets very hot. So much so that sometimes the residents have to stay outside of the house. Compounded by open sewage flowing in the drains in the community. The people live there for 20 years. You don't give them title to the land. You don't give them a lease of the land. You don't give them a license for the land. The homes are hot. They want to be able to improve it. They have to deal with heat plus the stench of the sewage. This administration comes into office. The first thing we do through the Housing Authority is to fix through an innovative sewage system designed by a Grenadian of Daniel and Daniel Engineering. We fix the sewage. This is not a joke, Mr. Speaker. When I went through the village and I'm walking through the park area that should in fact hold a bust and a statue to Simon Bolivar in tribute to the fact that the Venezuelan government gave us this site. When you walk in there, you walk down into the sewage, up to my knee in sewage. It's been fixed. People need economic empowerment. They can't go to the bank to get a loan or the credit union because they have no title to the property. As part of the land regularization, we offer the title. We explain to the persons who are living there that you have to pay for the land. And you have people who have the audacity to go and say to them they should have given it to you free. Well, you had 20-something years to give it to them free. Had you given it to them free, there would be no need for us to be giving them title today. But this notion of freeness, you see, is what you want to create the cognitive dissonance for regular people. You want to fool them into thinking that they can get free house. But why didn't you give them? They can get free land. Why didn't you give them? They can get free car. Why didn't you give them? They can get free transportation. Why couldn't you give them? Why didn't you give them the free tuition to TAMCC? Or to New Law? Why didn't you give them the free pension? You said the Treasury was pregnant with $500 million worth. Make the child, give the people the pension. So, Mr. Speaker, for the people of Lackaloo, it may not be perfect, but your MP isn't going to fool you. What's the square miles of Grenada? 133 square miles. There isn't a lot of land. If you give land for free, all of us would be entitled to say, I'm entitled to a free piece of land. So, we are not going to stand here and lie to you. We're not going to stand here and not explain to you how an economy works, how land ownership works, how wealth creation works, and how intergenerational wealth works. And so let us take now the current housing scheme built by the Chinese, and in fact, and all of the housing schemes built by the People's Republic of China and gifted to us. Under the auspices of the then Minister for Housing and the Member of Parliament for St. George Southeast. We conceptualized and designed the improvement to the premises first to make sure that there were closets and kitchen cabinetry. Again, thinking about the dignity of our people. We conceptualized that the homes should be sold so that people actually own them, so that again they have title, they can pass it on to their loved ones, they can use it as security to raise money for education, for the improvement of the facility, for further home ownership if they so desired. You cannot fool people into thinking you can have a home and not maintain it. You cannot fool people into thinking that you could be unemployed and maintain a home. So you can talk freeness all you want, but eventually the freeness comes home. So, Mr. Speaker, what we have is a successful program because now, Mr. Speaker, the Housing Authority has raised in excess of $12 million from the sale of these homes. We can now use this $12 million to create the $50 million fund that we're talking about so that we can go and build more homes for Grenadians. Where did the $12 million come from? It comes from the banking system, the credit union system, the liquidity that exists. The banks need loans. If they cannot lend money, Mr. Speaker, they will fail. A bank doesn't make money from the deposits. It makes money from the lending and the interest charge. So let's reverse. Freeness, you give you the homes. Where is the Housing Authority getting the $12 million from? Where is the opportunity for the banks and the credit unions to lend? And where is the opportunity for economic growth? Where is the opportunity for empowerment? So you see, Mr. Speaker, maybe in the land of the blind, the one-eyed man is king. But we are no land of the blind here in Grenada. So yes, Mr. Speaker, there are genuine cases where people need the homes. Blocks are set aside for that. Emergencies where you have fires, where there may be threats to people's lives, battered women, children, etc. Temporary accommodation are permitted. But the truth is, Grenadians are proud people, and if given the opportunity to earn their things outright, to work hard for it and to earn it, they prefer to do so than to be encouraged and trapped into some cycle of dependence so that you could manipulate them and threaten them close to election cycles and say, if you don't do this and if you don't do that, you will lose your job, or I will throw you out of the place I'll give you, and that sort of thing. The days for that are over. So, Mr. Speaker, the fishermen of St. David, the West Coast, and Carriacou, and maybe the northeastern coast, Louise and Marquis and so on, have long claimed the fame to fishing. It's almost as if St. David's not a coast. But, Mr. Speaker, we are working. The fishermen and their supporters are forming a St. David's Fishermen's Cooperative. Over the last 2 years, we've held our own fishermen's celebrations. And we intend, Mr. Speaker, with the support of the Minister for Fisheries, who has provided material support with engines and so on for fishermen in St. David, to get us to the point where St. David's too can contribute towards the food security that my friend is talking about. So when he wants to know what is the structural support for addressing food security, that is the structural support for addressing food security. Again, maybe my friend doesn't read, he doesn't look at TV, he didn't see the planes coming in with the goat, the sheep, the pigs. He hasn't visited Laura, he hasn't visited Maribor to see the enormous work that the Minister of Agriculture and his team is doing in regards to food security, particularly in livestock. Maybe he wasn't listening when the minister said, we are building a hatchery with partnership with Caribbean Agro Industries Limited to help the poultry sector in Grenada. Maybe he doesn't watch your town halls when the farmer in the local cinema get up and thank the minister for helping him grow his chicken business. So he talks about people participation, he talks about consultation. I don't recall when he was with NDC or NOF or NNP that he used to have town hall. He comes from the PRG era, he should be a master of that. Only here. Only in the British parliamentary system, he come in and say, we need consultation, we need people's participation. Go on 4 roads. Go on Karna, go in River Road, go in Dabo. Right? So let's keep moving. So, Mr. Speaker, I just want to clarify, because I'm seeing 37 minutes. Am I bound by this clock? Okay, so I just want to make sure, because I don't have cognitive dissonance.
Honorable Prime Minister, your time is 2.5 hours.
Oh, thank you, sir. I just wanted to make sure. All right. So I can keep my pace. So, Mr. Speaker, we're talking about food security, and St. David is doing its part. But before I go to this, I just want to raise something, because the Minister of Education is not in the Lower House. I'm sure you'll have ample opportunity to debate and address this, but I want to emphasize this. The only way to address the structural issues that we're talking here about food security and energy and healthcare is through our people. And the only tool to do that, Mr. Speaker, is education. You can't tax your way into prosperity. You can't save your way into prosperity. Even if you have oil and gas, if our population is not educated and doesn't have the skill set to exploit it and use it, it's staying right there. Other people will come and exploit it and use it. They will get wealthy and we will become impoverished. So, Mr. Speaker, you see this issue of the terrible performances in mathematics that plagues Grenada and the Caribbean. It is something we are confronting head on. It is something I raised prior to getting into this house, and it is something that the Minister of Education knows I will stay on him, I will stay on his PSs to make sure we begin to address this issue. I don't know if it's accurate, and I have to verify this, but I was told there may actually be a secondary school or two where not a single student passed mathematics. Now, I mean, all kinds of subjects have changed, but math hasn't changed. So we have fundamental challenges. That's why, Mr. Speaker, relying on a good citizen, returning national from the diaspora, Mr. Golden Julian, who, with his own money, has established a math lab at Woodlands. Recognizing the challenges we face in math, I invited both principals from the Westall Secondary School and the St. David Secondary School to meet with him in my presence, and have since offered support to the gentleman to make sure that as much resources and help as we can to help the principal, the teachers, and the students of these two secondary schools to improve their math outcome come next CXC. We are pursuing this. Now, this is at a parish or constituency level, but the Minister of Education will elaborate further in his presentation on the steps we are taking to begin to tackle this issue of the poor performance in math. And there's a reason we are focusing on math, Mr. Speaker, because if you can't do maths, you can't reason. And if you can't reason, you can't solve problems, and you can't come up with solutions to the challenges that we need. So whether it's engineering, you know, Mr. Speaker, simple things like nursing, math is critical to it. You don't have math, you can't become a nurse. Construction, engineering. So there's no going around it, underneath it. We have to go through, and we have to tackle this from the primary school come up. It is fun. It must be taught in a manner that makes the students want to do it. It also means we'll have to do significant teacher training, which is critical to ensure that we get this done. I want to thank the Minister for Agriculture again for the small agro-processing plant that is near completion at Lakalo. The NGO Grenada Network of Rural Women Producers. Their coconut processing plant and the chill room in Lassages was opened in January of 2025. Mr. Speaker, women still bear the brunt of the poverty challenge and the unemployment challenge in Grenada. But they dominate areas like agro-processing. They are increasingly getting into more and more into agriculture and into livestock rearing, and we need to do everything to make sure that we can support them, because ultimately they bear the brunt of the rearing and the caring of our families. So the spice goats and the sheep at Laura, 142 goats and 48 sheep. I think the minister will know that I will stay on him to make sure that we can get the distribution going as quickly as possible to make sure that the food security that the Member of Parliament for the Tongue of St. George so desperately wants to see, which he couldn't deliver while he was Minister of Agriculture, happens under us. So, Mr. Speaker, I want to assure the people of St. David that we are not just interested in infrastructure projects, because it's easy to see. There is the farm road in Mardi Gras, unattended to for decades. There's the farm road in Malmont. When I first walked that road, you couldn't drive, you had to walk. It is cleared, the drains and so on are being built. We certainly will be lobbying for more farm roads in St. David under the BNTF project. Senator Roderick St. Clair, the representative of the farmers, when he had the opportunity via DMs with PM, said, Minister of Agriculture, they want 20 farm roads in 2026 for the farmers. He said it doesn't have to be concreted or asphalted, but certainly they would like the drainage and the base course. So we too will be asking for part of the 20 for the farmers of St. David. Mr. Speaker, everyone knows that the state of the roads, including the roads in St. David's, are not what we would like them to be. That is a given fact. So we will not pretend or hide or run from that. And we will address it. But you cannot improve by doing the same thing over and over again. That is why, Mr. Speaker, we spent significant time on the part of the road from, give or take, the Pedmotor Junction into Vincent's and Windsor Forest. Why? These are roads that were built centuries ago. They essentially are single carriage roads. In most places, two vehicles cannot pass. So we could either just go and have asphalt over it again and patch it and continue with increased risk of accidents, increased traffic congestion because two vehicles can't pass, or we accept that we need to widen the roads, build the drains, fix the culverts, and then repair the entirety of the road. And Mr. Speaker, that is what we're doing. So yes, there will be some inconvenience. The member for St. Andrew Northeast said the people they don't want inconvenience, they want progress. But you see, this is the same kind of freeness concept that we seek to perpetuate. How are we going to get progress without inconvenience? So, you going to fix the road in the sky? The excavator and the bobcat and the base course and the asphalt will be laid in the sky so you can continue driving on the same old road? The only way to repair the road is to repair the road, which means there will be traffic delays, there will be diversions, there will be indentations. We want better water supply and better infrastructure. These are projects, the G-Cruise and the UK SIF, which absolutely, Mr. Speaker, were conceived and designed under the former administration, and we applaud them for that. But as the Member of Parliament for St. Patrick West said, you could have cake, you could have flour, you could have sugar, you could have baking tin, you could have stove, you could have gas, and still not get cake. So it is one thing to design the projects, to even obtain the financing for them. It's another thing to deliver them, and it is the pipe unblocker, MIT, that was instrumental in saving the UK SIF project and instrumental in making sure that we galvanize action under the G-Cruise project, because that too was also failing. So when you designed the project, you thought you were going to lay the pipe in the sky? You forgot that you were going to be laying the pipe in the road? And therefore, obviously, it will pose some inconvenience. But again, Mr. Speaker, this is not the land of the blind. So yes, we will do as much as we can to mitigate the inconvenience, but it will also be false to suggest to Grenadians that you can't have progress, that you will have progress with no inconvenience. And I think we know it's the rainy season. In fact, we're lucky that the rains have only now started to fall, right? And that's part of the challenge. And there are constraints. In the case of the UK SIF, there's a deadline for disbursement. If the work does not happen, you would lose the funding. And we almost lost it before because of inaction. And we were rescued by MIT. So in those circumstances, Mr. Speaker, the short period of inconvenience is certainly worth the progress that these water projects are going to do in terms of building resilience and improving the quality and the quantity of water supply throughout the length and breadth of Grenada. So, Mr. Speaker, To address the roads, and St. David is no exception, we have to obviously ensure that when we build the roads, they can last, and that not at the next rainy season, we have the same old potholes again, and it's continuing. So in St. David, work is ongoing on the Vincent's Windsor Forest Pedmotor Road. We expect that the road itself, asphalting of the road, will take place during the latter part of December, weather permitting, and the early part of 2026. So yes, there's enormous infrastructure work taking place throughout the length and breadth of St. David's, from, as I said, Malmont to Mardi Gras, from Westall in Stones to the construction of the St. David's Catholic Secondary School. All of this is ongoing. But importantly, we recognize the importance of our people. We recognize the importance of sports and socialization. And that's why, Mr. Speaker, we spend a lot of time sponsoring and supporting those who have sporting activities, cultural activities within our community. So whether it's the St. David's Football Club, which we support, the Joy Cricket School, the Polly's Cricket Tournament, the Westall Community Group, the Corinthians Steel Orchestra, support to our Calypsonians, the Tents, the Queen contestants, all of this is part of what we do with the constituency allowance funds that are provided to us. Mr. Speaker, financial literacy is a major challenge throughout the length and breadth of Grenada. In our constituency, we pioneered 3 sessions, and I want to thank all of our partners, the credit unions, the Inland Revenue Department, the banks, the insurance companies, who came out in Corinth, Old Westall, and Vincent's in supporting us in those initiatives. This is something that we really believe should be replicated and should be ongoing throughout the length and breadth of Grenada. Because you see, Mr. Speaker, if we don't teach financial literacy, people will continue to make financial decisions that make them worse off rather than better off. If people don't understand what it is to invest, what it is to save, if people don't understand that when we present this budget, that when we say we are in deficit for the particular financial year, that we are saying we are spending more than we collect, that applies in the individual lives as well. If you spend more than you collect, you're in deficit. So let's use this national budget as an example. Why are we spending more than we are collecting? We are spending more because of a shock. What's that shock? The shock is Hurricane Beryl. Prior to Hurricane Beryl, we were spending less than we were collecting, and therefore we were in surplus. You have a shock that causes almost 17% destruction and loss of your entire gross domestic product, which means the total of all the goods and services produced in the country. Not only do you have that loss, you don't have to recover. You don't have to build hundreds of homes in Carrick and Petit Martinique if there wasn't the hurricane. You don't have to rebuild and repair most, if not all, of the schools, the churches, the police station, the magistrates' court. You don't have to spend millions and millions and millions of dollars picking up debris, lifting boats out of the sea, transporting them out. You don't have to pay public servants who were not working. You don't have to build hundreds and hundreds of homes in St. Patrick. So what it means is, when you have a shock, you have to spend more than you're collecting. Not only that, because of the impact on people, you collect less, because there's less economic activity. You waive the property tax. There's talk about heartlessness. You waive the VAT. You waive the customs duties. So your revenue will fall, and your expenditure, your spending will dramatically increase. And that is what has happened. You don't recover from a hurricane in 12 months. As was so eloquently pointed out, yeah, I know Hurricane Ivan house. All the talk about spending and spending, show us the houses you built after Ivan for people. Show them. You could go and see all them build back better houses all over the place. So, the law allows for us to suspend the Fiscal Responsibility Act in cases of emergency or natural disasters. We are acting within the law, for the lawyer who's not here. We are acting with fiscal responsibility and prudence. The lawyer who's not here seems to have forgotten that before he moved to the movement, he was in the New National Party, and they too had suspended the Fiscal Resilience Act when COVID-19 came. And it was the right and responsible thing to do then, because the country was shut down. Your revenues were dropping, and you would have had to make significant expenditure nonetheless to support unemployed people, etc. So don't come here and talk about fiscal responsibility. And can we just suspend it like that? We can't. We suspend it within the law. And we have signaled, because we recognize that we are operating within a midterm review, that come 2027, we will go back to the Fiscal Resilience Act. Because we anticipate that for 2026, the heavy lifting arising from Hurricane Beryl should be winding down, if not more or less over. What that tells you is that in 2 years, we've been able to respond to a significant shock to the economy and the physical and ecological environment that we live in Grenada. I hear talk about you cut the capital budget, Well, which is it? You want us to continue the deficit and spend more in the capital budget, increase the deficit? Or you want us to be responsible and don't spend where you need to spend? But there's something else about budgeting that I recognize as a cultural issue. You see, Mr. Speaker, we inherited a culture where people just put numbers, they feel you should just put big numbers in the budget. The budget is for 12 months. If you know you're not going to be able to actually spend or achieve the goals within the 12 months, what are you bloating the budget for? What are you putting large numbers there for? You think people blindly will say, boy, big budget, big budget. And then you haven't spent the money. Most capital projects cannot be conceptualized, designed, costed, procured, and implemented in 12 months. That is the reality. You cannot design the St. David's Catholic Secondary School, cost it, get bills of quantities, tender it, procure it, get the financing in 12 months. I mean, average 2-bedroom house in Grenada takes you 6 to 8 months to build. Prior to that, it takes you 2 years to get the loan from the bank, to buy the land, to get planning permission. So coming here with some notion that you could snap your finger and get things done all of a sudden, highly unrealistic, cognitive dissonance. So, Mr. Speaker, if I may turn to some of the national issues that we need to address. I emphasize, and I think the Minister for Finance was absolutely correct, to not just talk about the estimates for 2026, but to provide the context in which, both the historical context and the current context in which the budget and the medium-term plan is laid. So the Minister of Finance was perfectly right to summarize the achievements of this administration over the last 3.5 years. You see, Mr. Speaker, because when so many things are happening, it is easy to forget where you come from. It is easy to forget the amount of things that have happened. And so his emphasis on the summary of the multitude things that have happened is well warranted. And it bears repetition. Because I had another moment of cognitive dissonance when I heard we didn't appeal the pension judgment. Almost suggesting as by not appealing it, you bound this administration to pay it. Well, how did you get to court in the first place? It is because you refused to pay or honor the pension. That's why the trade unions had to take the government to court. And let's be real, if the elections wasn't coming, you were appealing the thing. You call people down to the trade center and you say, all kind of man of the end of the world, I'm a Gideon. You pay this pension, the economy mash up, country mash up, yet still you know you had the $500 million in the treasury, pregnant. And then I hear about lack of accountability and transparency and issues with the public service, and derailing the poor new entrants to the Royal Grenada Police Force who are doing human service on behalf of the people of Grenada. So, Mr. Speaker, I want to emphasize, it is this administration which moved the ceiling of wages to GDP from 9% to 13%. You see, Mr. Speaker, because we don't want the money for ourselves, we want the money for our people. And why did we do so? So that we could, in fact, pay the increases in salaries to our police officers, or public servants, or teachers. So that we could tackle the pay and grade issue for the police officers, which was outstanding since 1994. So that we can not just pay the retroactive pension, but ensure that all of the public officers who are on the establishment can get their pension when they leave. So we hear about mass retirement from the Royal Grenada Police Force. Well, the only reason there could be mass retirement is because they have the pension. Otherwise, they would have had to stay there and suck salt. Now, I find it interesting, Mr. Speaker, that we talk about insecurity and lack of security. When we pass the amnesty, when we pass stiffer laws for gun crimes, who voted against it? There was a division in this House, Mr. Speaker. Each member of Parliament was asked to state where you stand. The distinguished leader of His Majesty's opposition voted no against stiffer penalties for possession of firearms and ammunition. And you wish to talk about insecurity and security and concerns about the RGPF? You think it's okay for all our men and women to face harm from firearms and there shouldn't be stiffer penalties associated with that? And you're offering yourself in service of leadership of this great nation. The headquarters of the RGPF, located on the fort, one way in, one way out, through a narrow colonial road. I mean, if that isn't a security risk for the management of the RGPF, I don't know what is. My friend says only when a hurricane happens we can move quickly. Well, there was no hurricane impacting the headquarters of the RGPF. In record time, resource paid for, renovated, and the RGPF management and team were able to move in to the RGPF headquarters. So, let us talk about other things that happened. The Grenville police station, a sight for sore eyes, awful conditions. In record time, a new building was found, renovated, outfitted, so that all our men and women could move into far more comfortable premises. I want to emphasize, I've only been Minister of National Security for 3.5 years. I know some people who've held the portfolio unbroken for decades. Mr. Speaker, the Minister of Finance and his team have happily agreed to find the financing in excess of, give or take, $20 million to procure a brand new state-of-the-art Coast Guard vessel for the Coast Guard. We are working with the suppliers to build and outfit this craft, which is going to be of a standard and have the capacity that would in fact allow the Coast Guard to be at sea, not at base. And all things being equal, Mr. Speaker, we expect the craft to be delivered in 2027. So again, when we talk about border and port and safety and security for fishermen, to address the illicit flow of firearms, the illicit flow of narcotics, Mr. Speaker, we didn't go and ask for no grant money from anybody. We didn't go and beg no donors. We are funding it ourselves because we are prepared to put our money where our mouth is when it comes to national security. So, Mr. Speaker, on the national security home affairs front, a lot has happened. And bear with me, because sometimes our lawmen, or prison officers, or immigration officers, the staff at the home affairs, they are probably not given the credit because they are quietly keeping all of us safe. They are quietly processing, and we don't appreciate the significant work that has been done. I will try to summarize because it's a lot, but we could take the prison. 4 new vehicles were acquired for the prison. I am happy to advocate on their behalf that if the members of Parliament for St. George Northwest, St. Mark, St. Andrew, Northeast, and Southeast don't want their vehicles, I am sure the prison could do with 2 of them. And I think the police would be happy for the other 2. So what has been happening at the prisons? New toilet facilities for inmates in the main prisons. A dam project to provide water to farm during the rainy season. Refurbishment of the security room, the gate lodge, the Boston and remand, the administrative office, the dining room, the kitchen and toilet, facilities for male and female officers, and the roof of the female officers' quarters. Installation of exercise facility at the maximum security. Excavation of the perimeter road and the farm road and space for new garage. Creation of additional parking space and commencement of a retaining wall at the top road. Completion of the retaining wall behind the trade complex. A 40-foot container has been provided for additional storage. Purchase of new security equipment and protective gears. Construction of roof for blocks plant. Installation of fiber optic cables to enhance telephone and CCTV system. Installation of an emergency alarm system. Crucially, Mr. Speaker, recruitment and training of 55 officers to be certified with NVQ Level 2 Correctional Custodial Services certification. 6 new tailors have been recruited, and we have a school principal and 1 administrative officer who've been recruited. 17 junior officers have been confirmed. We expect additional confirmations by the end of this month and promotion of approximately 30 officers by the end of this month. 15 officers have been trained locally and internationally in specialized areas. And crucially, Mr. Speaker, because my distinguished colleague at the bar and member of Parliament for the Tongue of St. George talked about the certification, the rehabilitation. 30 inmates at the prison were certified with Level 1 CVQ in electrical installation, facilities maintenance, AC and refrigeration, and Level 2 in general agriculture. So things are happening at the prison. I wish to place on record, because you see, Mr. Speaker, and I think sometimes the prison officers feel, and they say it, like stepchildren, or bastards, or they get afterthought, because we do not appreciate that the prison represents the single biggest concentration of security risk to this country. And it is not easy to be a prison officer. Most of us wouldn't be able to stomach the job. And so we owe them an immense debt of gratitude for the work they do in keeping us safe. And I want to assure the Commissioner of Prison, the management, and his team that he has my fullest confidence and support, and I look forward to us continuing to work together as we modernize the prison system. Our goal is not to have more inmates in the prison. Our goal is to have less inmates in our prison. Another department that is oftentimes forgotten, the immigration department. I am on record as saying the passport office is perhaps the most efficient and courteous government department in Grenada, and I make no apologies for saying so. We have now online payment for passport and immigration services. The team has been able to, as was announced last year, when we did the budget presentation, to implement the 10-year validity for passports for persons 18 years and older. Prior to that, it was 5 years. Which means every 5 years you have to renew your passport. So yes, things are happening. We don't need a hurricane. We have successfully negotiated the e-passport renewal contract, saving as much as $350,000 and the replacement of 200 spoiled passports previously. We are moving to implement the online ED card. It has taken a little longer than we would have liked. In the interim, we had to rely on our printer to print them, which has actually saved us money because in the past they were printed in Trinidad and Tobago. So we expect that the ED online system will be ready come the 1st of January 2026, if not before that. I'm sure when we traverse the airport, we will see 6 new kiosk systems were added to the 3 that was already in operation at the Morris Bishop International Airport, increasing our capacity to 9 units. So you don't have to go to an immigration officer. When you come in, you can go to the machine, and it allows for far faster throughput at the airport. We expect that 1 more unit will be added in 2026. Carrico and Petit Martinique will not be left out at the Turtle Bay Port in Carrico. And these kiosks are now going to be opened up to citizens of the USA, Canada, UK, the EU, CARICOM, and the OECS. We expect the Prickly Bay Marina office to reopen, and we expect the operationalizing of the Turtle Bay Port of Entry. We are now able to share our work permit application information with our partners, the GRCC, and the Criminal Investigation Department for vetting and reviewing, ensuring that we have more robust vetting of persons who are applying for work permit. I just want to emphasize, Mr. Speaker, that security is quiet. You see, it's only when something happens that everybody makes a noise. But we don't pay attention to the fact that the police officers, the immigration officers, the prison officers are always preventing things from happening, always quietly securing us. So the immigration authorities do detain non-nationals who are arrested, charged, and convicted for working without work permits. We deport persons who should not be in Grenada. So, for example, 21 non-nationals were charged and convicted of immigration offenses and were expelled from the state. Some of them, Mr. Speaker, quite dangerous. So, it is important for us to appreciate that the Immigration Department, contrary to the image of suggesting that the RGPF is without expertise or experience, is functioning at capacity and is doing a wonderful job, and I think we owe a debt of gratitude to them as well. Mr. Speaker, I've already talked about the police headquarters. I've talked about St. Andrew, Grenville. But we refurbished the Sotez police station, the St. Paul's police station. We've had to relocate the Petit Martinique police station, right? There's temporary retrofitting of the Coast Guard unit and the SSU barracks. The RGPF has implemented drone surveillance. I saw a demonstration myself. We were successful in completing the police pay and grade structure. Mr. Speaker, a total of 202 new police officers have been recruited. We expect that by the end of the year, an additional 60 more will be recruited. Mr. Speaker, in the last 3 years, there has been 187 promotions within the RGPF. We have acquired a digital firearms registration management system for the RGPF, and we've acquired an automated biometric identification system known as ABIS. These are designed, for example, biometrics, fingerprints, to help the police in solving crimes much faster. The digital firearms registry is absolutely important because even when people have licensed firearms, sometimes it is stolen, sometimes it is lost. And we need to be able to make sure that we have a clear record of what is happening. So, Mr. Speaker, It's important for us to understand that this government is committed to supporting our lawmen and women, committed to supporting our prison officers, committed to supporting our immigration officers, committed to supporting our Coast Guard officers. I will repeat, as I often do, it is not an easy job. We need the support and cooperation of the members of the public. The police are not serving themselves, the Coast Guard officers are not serving themselves, the immigration and prison officers are not serving themselves, they are serving the public. And when we ridicule them and disrespect them in public and post all kinds of unfortunate social media accounts, it is not helping the image of Grenada, it is not helping the morale of our servicemen and women, and it is not something we should encourage or support. So, Mr. Speaker, we will continue with our progressive agenda when it comes to national security within the trial and state of Grenada, Carriacou, and PT Martinique. And I wish to assure the public I have the fullest confidence of the Commissioner of Police and the management of the Royal Grenada Police. Mr. Speaker, I want to emphasize, because in the lower house there are constituencies that are not represented on this side. The tongue of St. George, St. Mark, St. George's Northwest, St. Andrew Northeast, St. Andrew Southeast. But I want the constituents of these constituencies to understand and appreciate that this administration treats them as if they were represented on this side. So if you go to St. Andrew Northeast, Mr. Speaker, you will see the refurbishment work on the La Poterie and the Upper St. John community centers. You will see the lighting of the La Poterie playing field. You will see the fencing of the La Poterie playing field and the Pearls basketball court. You would see that contributions are given to the Saraka consistently for the last 3 years. You will see that you are getting your fair share of solar street lights. You will see that churches get assistance. You would see the installation of the Pearls Play Park, the Tivoli Drummers, the Capital Jab, the Black Barbie, the Miss St. Andrew, all of them are still getting support and assistance. You will see that the sporting organizations are getting assistance. You will see the students are getting assistance. There are contributions to medical assistance, back to school, Christmas hampers, toy distribution. You will see, Mr. Speaker, that by the end of 2025, that 100 homes have been built in St. Andrew Northeast. You will see that 51 homes have been repaired. You will see that 49 persons have got material assistance. And you will see that 22 households have benefited from the WASH program, particularly in the Baghdad area. The Iraqi Gulf War must have had a significant influence on that community. So I want the residents in St. Andrew Northeast to ask themselves, if you're getting that kind of service without representation on this side of the house, imagine the kinds of things that will happen when you get the representation. We will take the car, we will take the constituency allowance, we will take the salary for the MP, and we will go to work for you. So, the same thing applies to St. Mark, the tongue of St. George, and St. Andrew Southeast. We are working for all Grenadians and none will be left behind. So I want to assure the member from the movement that the tongue of St. George will not be left behind this time. That yes, we will address the road conditions in River Road. That we will continue to address some of the other infrastructure challenges that the tongue of St. George has. And I pointed out to what is being done currently at the intersection of Old Fort and Lucas Street. There are other areas in Archibald Avenue and so on that will be attended to. So no, we are not going to leave the tongue of St. George behind. We can assure the people there that even as I speak, there are significant projects, significant assistance being meted out to the residents in very much the same way as I outlined for St. Andrew Northeast. Mr. Speaker, the Minister of Health is here. He will elaborate when he's given the opportunity to speak on the progress and the plans for healthcare. But I think it's important, given the fact that as a government we are on record as showing our commitment to healthcare, for me to speak a little bit about healthcare. Again, we are dealing with decades, if not centuries, of inherited culture, inherited infrastructure, inherited systems. And when I hear people talk about the people need better healthcare, no. Well, I mean, you had 20-something years to do it, or 10 or 13 years, however long you were there. If it was done, we would not be having the conversation. There would have been no need for Project Polaris. There would not have been a need for a partnership with Mount Sinai to come and help us with quality improvement at the General Hospital now. So let us talk about what quality improvement means, because you see, Mr. Speaker, we think somehow healthcare is going to just miraculously turn on its head. It is not. It is simple things like this. Patient identification bans. Now you may say, what does that have to do with healthcare? I'll tell you what it has to do. If you go to any North American hospital, you'd see they check you about 15 times. Every person comes to you is going to ask you your name, your date of birth, and your address over and over. And you ask, why are you doing that? They want to ensure that you are the patient. Do you know why, Mr. Speaker? Because if you're not the patient and they give you the wrong medicine, you're dead.
That's it.
Did we have that at our hospital before? Unfortunately, I've never been hospitalized. But based on my observation and visiting people, we don't have. A simple thing like this makes an enormous difference in the quality of healthcare. It reduces the risk of wrong prescriptions, of discharging a patient when they should not be discharged. And those simple cultural, behavioral things have to be reinforced over and over so that we get it. So it's not coming and shouting on a podium, we want better healthcare. No, it is things like that that will actually lead to better healthcare. Let us take the medical records. I wish we had the picture here to show it. The medical records were stashed on the ground in Manila folders, just stashed up. No filing system, no record keeping system. You couldn't find anything. So if I visited the hospital before, they can't find my record, what did I come for? The quality improvement has sorted and digitized the records. And they are working on the systems that will allow the nurses and the doctors to have immediate access to it so that when you come in, they have your history. And therefore, they can see what you're allergic to, what you're not allergic to, what you were treated for before. That is how we are going to improve healthcare. So these are some of the things that we are working on. The huddles. What are the huddles? It is after an operation is conducted, all of the participants come together and they debrief. I'm sure when the police has its operations, they come to look at what went good, what went bad, etc. So that you can minimize the risk or improve things going on. These things that used to happen. So how are you going to improve it? The accountability and management system that you need at the hospital needs to be put in place. That's how you improve it. So let's take an example, Mr. Speaker. This is not made up. This is stuff told to me by patients. And I hope the young lady will forgive me. She will remain anonymous, but I will give you the example so you understand the gravity of what I'm talking about. When they go in to do surgery, there are 12 needles. Proper procedure and practice will tell you, when you finish this surgery, you need to account for the 12 needles. But if when the surgery is finished, you only have 10 needles, where are the other 2 needles? And who's saying to the patient, surgery, a lot of blood, mucus, etc. There is a risk that 2 of the needles are in you. And therefore, since we can't find it, we are noting this, we are aware of it, and you need to monitor when you discharge whether you're urinating or you're passing feces to see whether the needles come out. Do you think the patient should then go home and then find out when urinating that a needle is dropped from her? How are we going to fix that? We are going to fix that by ensuring that the quality improvement, safety protocols are followed and that they're enforced. And we don't operate from a place of fear. So you hide and you don't tell the patient. And then when the patient comes, you're worrying about whether the patient will sue you and those kinds of things. We need to move past that. And in any event, that is why you should have professional indemnity insurance, because mistakes will happen. So if we are not prepared to speak openly about those things, Mr. Speaker, and confront them, all those who are talking about we want healthcare now and better healthcare now, they didn't do it for a whole quarter century. But they're talking about they want better healthcare now. Anybody who knows about change management tells you you need disruption sometimes in order to have the change management. And that disruption is Mount Sinai and quality health improvement. It is the Project Polaris. It is the structural reorganization that we need to do. That is why, Mr. Speaker, we are supporting the Minister of Health and championing the statutorization of our hospital. The member was talking about systemic and structural changes. That is structural and systemic changes. Why, Mr. Speaker? In the current public service construct, the length of time it takes to retain a doctor and nurse, they move on. So we need to create the structure that allows for the management of the hospital to be able to hire, discipline, promote, transfer, and fire people quickly. Or then the talent moves. There is a shortage of healthcare professionals worldwide. So when we talk about healthcare, Mr. Speaker, we are not just talking, we are acting, we are delivering, but you are dealing with decades, if not centuries, cultural issues, under-resourcing. We become completely reliant on other countries to supply us with specialist doctors. It takes 5-7 years to become a doctor, and that's just a general practitioner. So coming here and making it sound as if somehow, miraculously, you will get medical care. No, and we somehow said we were going to transform medical care. No, it's false. We said we will build a new hospital, and we are building it. Mr. Speaker, just for the record, when the NDC lost power in 2013, the same land we now bought in Calvin for the hospital site, and the sale agreement was done, price was agreed. The permanent secretary and the Minister of Finance, His Excellency, now the Governor of the Central Bank, had the opportunity. When the administration changed and this was presented to the then Minister of Finance, then Prime Minister, he said, "You ain't bothering with that." They never bothered. If they had bothered, the hospital would have been built. During the last 10 years, it was not. So when you're talking about healthcare, you had the opportunity to do it. It's not fiction. I'm not inventing this. And yes, we recognize that there is no single silver bullet. That is why so much emphasis is going on improving the infrastructure in our medical stations or health stations, building resilience, smarting them. That is why we're working with the Food and Nutrition Council to ensure that the Food and Nutrition Council policy for healthier eating is implemented. That is why we are implementing mandatory sports in the primary and secondary schools so that our children could be healthy. That is why we have the sugar tax, so we could discourage excessive consumption of sugar and salt and alcohol and tobacco. It is a whole process to get all of us healthy. So that is why we lighten the playing fields. That is why we have the play packs and the play pens. That is why we have a Ministry of Mental Health, because we recognize health is not just the physical, it's also the mental. People here talking about they want Carlton home. I mean, when was Carlton home destroyed? So I mean, another moment of cognitive dissonance. What did you do during the time? The Minister for Mental Wellness has indicated, yes, we were expecting to turn the sword at the end of December. It will happen in the first quarter of 2026. So we are committed to transforming the healthcare system in Grenada. Do you think the Minister for Foreign Affairs went all the way to Nigeria and Ghana to source specialists and to source nurses if we are not serious and committed to healthcare in Grenada? Perhaps the member for the Tongue of St. George didn't hear when the Minister for Finance announced that we have agreed with St. George's University to have 30 new medical 4-year degree scholarships at St. George's University this January. 30. Never done before in the history of Grenada. Not 2 and 3 and 4, that's what we used to. 30. But it takes 4 years to finish that program. Then you have to go to your rotations. So in the meantime, what happens? You have to find the doctors from somewhere to fill the gap. You have to find the nurses from somewhere to fill the gap. It wasn't our decision to terminate the Grenada Nursing School. So, save the sanctimony for, according to the member for St. Andrews Northwest, for when you get the moral authority to come and talk to us. So let's take housing. They have not counted the Build Back Better homes, the hundreds of them, in response to a shock. They have not counted the home improvement and resilience program where hundreds of homes are being built by the Ministry of Housing, Grenadian style. They have not counted the hundreds, if not thousands, of persons who are getting material assistance up and down the place. They have not counted the WASH program. In some instances, the homes where the WASH program is being delivered is the foundation for a home, because some of these homes are so frail. They have not counted the water resilience we are building in by doing concrete roofs so that you can put a water tank on the top and do your rainwater harvesting. They have not counted that 244 persons have purchased homes coming out of the Chinese program. They have not counted the fact that we've actually given the people in Lakalong their title. The only thing they want to focus on is that there's 17 nice pilot homes in Dunfermline. We have a problem with that because nice homes. Grenadians don't deserve nice homes. And we seem not to want to deal with data. We seem to ignore the fact that we import almost everything into Grenada. Where is the aggregate coming from? The sand outside of Grenada. Where is the cement coming from? Where is the steel coming from? Where is the lumber coming from? Where is the nails coming from? Where is the galvanized material coming from? Where is the paint coming from? We make any of this in Grenada? Coupled with the fact that we are mountainous terrain, lots of rain, landslides, hurricanes. So of course we have to do a pilot, because we need to be able to know empirically which homes cost the least and which homes Grenadians like. So when you talk about consultation and people's participation, we didn't build apartments in the sky and say you have to go and take that. We have 5 or 6 different models named after Grenadian names: cinnamon, clove, nutmeg, mace. So that the public, the financiers, the other contractors who don't use that type of technique could go and see it. Maybe you didn't go to Dunfermline, so when you say there's no new technology and there's no new change, whatever the case is, I mean, if you don't know what you're talking about, you don't know. So, when the homes are complete, and they will be soon, I think 12 or 13 are complete, viewing has already started. 30, on average, 30 persons per day go up there. We will get the data. We will know what the demand is. We will then be able to invite, he asks, where are the partners? Who do you think build the homes? It's suppliers. They are the partners. Who do you think will finance the homes? The banks and the credit unions? They are the partners. And who do you think will benefit? The citizens of Grenada, our partners. So, again, if we had given out the homes provided with the generosity of the People's Republic of China, where would we have gotten the $12.5 million to allow us to build more homes? He makes reference to the fact that the money is coming from the Lotteries Authority and the Grenada Development Bank. Well, I mean, they are state entities. Lotto was set up to do what? Support what? What's the motto? Sports, culture, and nation building. You don't think building homes for citizens of Grenada is the best example of nation building? The development bank. How are you going to develop the country? With us supporting home ownership. That is what we're about. Look at the pictures of the Project 500 homes. Look at them. You see, you just want to build wooden homes with no bathroom and toilet. Right? That's the standard. No ambition. In defense of the money program. You shouldn't have permanent employment. You shouldn't earn more than $1,200 per month. Stay in training all your life, take your $700, and don't complain because we'll take it away from you. So yes, we have to want better, bigger, and more for our citizens. And so we are unapologetic about this. And I want to emphasize, again, this is not a one-shoes-fit-all approach. We didn't say we're eliminating the Grenada Home Improvement and Resilience Program. We didn't say we're eliminating the repairs program. We didn't say we're eliminating the WASH program. We are continuing with all of them because we recognize that everybody has different economic circumstances. So that is why we are proceeding with Project 500. It will become Project 1000, Project 1500, Project 2000, Project 2500. Because without doubt, housing is one of the most pressing challenges facing Grenada, made worse by the climatic conditions that we are dealing with. So, Mr. Speaker, let us now move to infrastructure. I wish to emphasize something so that we understand. The government of Grenada is the client. It is not the contractor. Oftentimes, it is not the consultant. And sometimes it's the financer, but oftentimes the finance comes from loans, from grants. So let's start at the north of the island, the Sotez Breakwater Project. I don't think the sea started running into that area 3 years ago. So I saw people's homes inundated with water. The pillars and so on in the water. We've lost significant coastline. How are you going to fix that? You have to get the right engineers. Grenada doesn't have the capacity. There are no engineers here to do that. A firm based in the UK with offices in Jamaica had to be retained after a procurement process. They didn't have to visit the site. They have to engineer the solution. You don't have to hire an environmental and social impact person to come and then look at what is proposed and how it will impact the community. You don't have to go and find the financing through the Caribbean Development Bank. And because they are giving you the loan, they control the procurement. You have to procure in accordance with their rules. And we've done all of that, Mr. Speaker. So we expect that a contract will be awarded in the first quarter of 2026. And thereafter, we expect the contractor, the consultant will do what is required to commence this process of saving Sotez. Who built the Sotez breakwater and left it incomplete? Were appropriate social and environmental impact studies done to show the impact that building this would have on Sotez? No. And the accompanying villages? So who created this problem? So, yes, Mr. Speaker, we inherited the mess and we will clean it up. So both members of Parliament for St. Patrick have the assurance that the Ministry of Infrastructure will continue to work steadfastly on this issue. Mabuya, let's go to Mabuya. We're coming down the West Coast now. Let's go to Mabuya in St. John. I mean, I have a feeling, Minister, maybe you can tell me, this road has been in the state of that probably as long as you've been alive. More than that. What's the excuse for not tackling it? Right? But we are going to tackle it, Mr. Speaker. So our approach to addressing the significant challenges with the road is this, Mr. Speaker. We have asked for expressions of interest and requests from proposals from contractors who are able to finance, design, build, and maintain the roads. Maintain the roads. We have received those expressions of interest. We have received those requests for proposals. The Ministry of Infrastructure, the Ministry of Finance, we are evaluating those things with the aim of awarding contracts in 2026 to tackle Mabuya to start with. And I want to explain what the finance, design, build, and maintain means. It means the contractor has to get his own money and build the road. We will approve the design, we will monitor the construction, and when it is completed, we will enter into a payment proposal with the contractor to pay them for the work that they've done. So you will not see any sum in the budget specifically allocated for this because they have to finance it, and obviously the roads are going to be built over 1 or 2 year period, and when that is completed, they will be paid. We will agree the price of the road upfront. Because they are financing it, Mr. Speaker, and I want to make that clear because you see, if you don't make it clear, they're going to go and make all kinds of suggestions. If they are financing it, we are going to have to pay them a finance charge. Because in effect, they are giving us a loan by spending their own money to build the road before we pay them. So when we talk about transparency, I want to be clear. We are coming here and saying so, we're not responding to any questions. So whoever contractor is awarded the Mabuya contract road, they will finance it. The next package will be from the Morris Bishop International Airport to what is called the Stinky Bridge in Woodlands. The next package will be from the cliff to the old Westall Point Junction. And the next package will be from the same old Westall area all the way up to the St. Paul's police station. And we're not leaving out St. George Northeast. The next package will be from the Dickon roundabout all the way to Mount Suma. Now, Mr. Speaker, I want our citizens to understand certain things. Road construction is dirty work. It is hard construction work that will bring inconvenience. But you can't run the road nice and smooth without the road being built or repaired. And when we build it or repair it, it has to last for a good 25, 30 years. So there will be inconvenience. There are roads that need to be addressed. You can't, however, do all of the road construction at the same time because it will have virtual chaos and gridlock. So we are going to be strategic in prioritizing when some of these roads start and when they commence to mitigate the inconvenience to our citizens. But I want to emphasize, Mr. Speaker, about the resilience. When we tackle the Molineux Road, and the reason we are tackling the Mabuya Road is that you have to be able to drive from St. George's to go out without constantly having to go through a by road, or go through Mount Granby, or go through Mount Nesbitt, roads that clearly were not designed, or go through Mount Morris for heavy traffic. And that is why we are tackling some of these difficult roads, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable Member, the Speaker is demeaning the Chair.
Noted, Mr. Speaker. Madam Deputy Speaker, Chair. I acknowledge the Deputy Speaker in the chair. May I proceed, Madam Deputy Speaker?
Honourable Member for St. David, you may proceed.
Thank you. So, Madam Deputy Speaker, we are going to tackle these roads because they are main roads. When the pipelaying is done for Grandlands, clearly from the Sugar Mill roundabout all the way into the Carnage, that road will also have to be addressed. Madam Deputy Speaker, outside of the roads, the Ministry of Infrastructure, and before I go, let me emphasize, there is also a bridge packet component to be addressed as well. For example, most of the bridges in St. Patrick have been compromised as a result of heavy rainfalls and hurricanes. And so we are working even now to address some of those. The Marquee Bridge in St. Andrew is another bridge that is already compromised, and we are working to address this bridge as well. The government buildings, Madam Deputy Speaker, is also of major concern. We could even start with this Parliament building and the room upstairs where lunch is served. The office of the Prime Minister is leaking. The entire floor was flooding yesterday from the rainfall. So the need to maintain and engage in preventative maintenance, the challenge here with the air conditioning system was a perfect example. If sums are not budgeted and adequate suppliers are not retained to address preventative maintenance of government buildings, they will deteriorate faster than they should. The air quality, the mold will become prevalent. And this is a constant challenge that has led to a situation where most of the government offices, including the Ministry of Finance, Inland Revenue, VAT Division, are all over the place, encountering enormous rent. And this is an issue that requires, again, a strategic solution, because we are now paying rent. We don't have to raise the capital to, in many cases, almost rebuild some of these buildings to make them effective. So the Financial Complex Limited, which was a company that was designed to help with the financial complex and to maintain it, has now been brought under the Ministry of Infrastructure. It has been rebranded facilities to emphasize the need for it to maintain facilities, and we are giving it a mandate to address central government buildings. To that end, we are outsourcing the maintenance for what I would call non-central buildings, especially when you have many of them located all over the country. So for example, the schools. We have hundreds of schools. They need to be maintained. One entity cannot maintain the schools. And so we've decentralized the maintenance of the schools by ensuring that the Ministry of Education and the Ministry of Infrastructure can contract with local contractors in the various districts so that the principals and the teachers have someone that they can call immediately when there's a leaking pipe. We may take a leaking pipe or a leaking toilet for granted, but if the pipe is leaking, it floods the entire place, the furniture is destroyed, students' materials are destroyed, parents and principals, teachers' materials are destroyed, and then instead of $10 for an elbow or collar, we then end up spending hundreds of thousands of dollars to repair or maintain a school. And so that is part of the approach that we are taking to try and address the issue of maintenance of government buildings. But it will require, frankly, significant capital and some more strategic thought as to how we address this, and it is something that has to be dealt with expeditiously, because it's not just the maintenance, it's greening the buildings, it's putting in appropriate air conditioning systems, air quality, and ensuring that our behaviors don't encourage mold in above the buildings. And that means ensuring that the air conditioning system is engineered, not a contractor just come and install to air condition in the room. They don't measure the space, they don't understand the load, they don't understand the light or the wind or any of those kinds of things. So those are some of the issues that we are also trying to address in the Ministry of Infrastructure. So the ministry intends to make roads and bridges and central government buildings its primary focus, and as much as possible, while the police stations, health centers, etc. are restored and maintained, to have those outsourced to suppliers, thereby providing them with employment so that they can maintain these facilities.
Honorable Member, we pause for a moment so that the Speaker can resume the chair.
Honorable Speaker, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Deputy. Honorable Prime Minister, please proceed.
Yes. So thank you, Mr. Speaker, and welcome back. So it may be self-evident, Mr. Speaker, but we completed the Molyneux Bridge. The Grenadian Road widening is ongoing. The True Blue Road, the Laborie Road, the Monkuma Road, the Mongo Road, dozens of small roads, bridges, culverts throughout the length and breadth of Grenada. Under the MIT Visible Transformation, the removal of derelict vehicles, the restoration of the Kirani James Boulevard, the lighting of the National Stadium is ongoing as we speak, Mr. Speaker. This will certainly allow us to hold night cricket, T20 cricket, and possibly, in fact, Mr. Speaker, for the record, we were offered some Caribbean Premier League games in August. We had to decline because it was in the middle of Carnival, right? So we've said to them, you could either bring it before or after. So already, Mr. Speaker, the investment is bearing fruit in lighting the cricket stadium. So we emphasize that there are capacity constraints in Grenada. There is one quarry that technically should be shut down. We are seeking to reopen the telescope quarry. There is one asphalt plant operational by a private entity. We've started to encourage investment in the private sector, and we expect more will enter the country. We import all our sand from Guyana, and we import all of the aggregates that are required in construction. So those things are not things that are going to happen overnight, or the snap of the finger. But we are committed to making sure that we plan properly and that we can get it done. I want to emphasize this because I think it's important. In the last 3.5 years, Mr. Speaker, I have sought as the Minister for Infrastructure to support and fight for local contractors. But some of these local contractors are not fighting for themselves at all. They seem to think the government is blind. They can give you shoddy work, improper work, delayed work, and think they should not be held accountable. Well, I've fought for 3.5 years. Oftentimes on their behalf, I now intend to fight on behalf of the citizens of Grenada. So for contractors who have government contracts, deliver the people work. Put the resources on the sites. The days when contracts are not terminated, retention clauses and delayed payments are not enforced, are going to become a thing of the past. You cannot bid for a project, have the designs, have the plans, get the contract, and then decide you now want to re-engineer and redesign and delay the work. Or decide you're not complying with the contract because you feel it suits you. It is taxpayers' money that are paying for the infrastructure in Grenada. Many of them don't want to work together. They have no capacity. They don't want to collaborate. And that is what is driving the foreign work permits. That is what is driving more and more foreign non-Grenadians entering the construction industry in Grenada. Many of our local contractors prefer to remain small rather than collaborating with each other and doing joint ventures so that they could get bigger contracts. And so many of them don't qualify for the Caribbean Development Bank procurement guidelines or the World Bank. That's part of the challenge, right? So if you don't want to pay tax, so you don't want to file financial statements, and then there's a project and they say, well, you need to supply us with your financial records for the last 2 years. You're out already. That's what happens. So they'll ask you for your VAT returns. They'll ask you for your financial statements. They'll ask you for proof that you've done a project of this size. And if you're not collaborating, then how are you going to prove that you've done a project of this size? In the request for expressions for the finance, design, build, and maintain, not a single Grenadian contractor has responded. So you see, Mr. Speaker, we have to work together. The remaining small is to our collective disadvantage. And the partnering and the joint ventures need to happen if we are going to benefit and take advantage of the enormous opportunities that are there now in the construction sector and in the growth and development of the economy in Grenada. Right? And we're talking about public sector investment, Mr. Speaker, but look around at what is happening in the private sector. You've got a hotel being built in Leverett. You have 6 census which has been completed in Lasajas. Intercontinental is being built right next to it. Right next to it, the Lasajas collection is being built. You've heard the MP for Carrickmont, P.T. Martinique, says that True Blue Bay is moving to build a hotel in Carrickmont. You have the expansion of Silver Sands taking place now. The expansion of Silver Sands Beach House taking place. You have schools in David's Catholic Secondary School, St. Andrews Anglican Primary. You've got Florida government. So when people talk about the employment data, they're accurate. I mean, you're a lawyer, you're not an economist or a mathematician, so stick to your field. You have employers advertising every day looking for workers. Even the hotels are telling you how challenged they are with finding workers. So this is not some made-up statistics. And not only that, I mean, to impugn the integrity of the statistics department is unfortunate. It is not the Minister for Economic Development or the Finance Minister that is producing those reports. Those reports are produced by the statistics department, the same department that serves each government. So it is real, Mr. Speaker. The unemployment rate has dropped significantly. In fact, it should have dropped even more if the data excluded school children, because we've moved the school leaving age to 18. That data has a category of 14 to 19. Yes, there are people who are not working. The question is why? Some don't want to work, some don't have the skill set that is required. And that is why, Mr. Speaker, the focus on TVET, the focus on the centers of excellence, and the focus on revamping our education is absolutely critical, because even though you have almost 100% access to secondary and primary school, you have high youth unemployment, higher than we like, and therefore says there is a clear skills mismatch between what we are teaching, what we are exposing our students to, and what the market wants. And that is what we are seeking to address. And I've said this time and time again, you can't find an electrician, plumbers, tilers, even painters, window installers, masons, hydraulic technicians. All of the hotels have elevators. MEP, HVAC, air conditioning, refrigeration and technicians. Then let's talk about the digital skills. Everything's online, cybersecurity, artificial intelligence, chefs, not cooks, chefs. So, Mr. Speaker, if we do not reform the education sector, we will continue in this situation. We will continue frustrating our young people. And that is why this administration is so keen on ensuring that the centers of excellence, that the changes in our curriculum, that the focus on math, that the focus on the creative economy happens. Because that is the structural change we need to ensure the sustainability and the continued economic growth of Grenada, bearing in mind the challenges we face both from climate change and the geopolitical uncertainties that we face. So, Mr. Speaker, the transformation that we talk about is not physical transformation. It's not building a road or a bridge. It may count, but it is a transformation of our people. It is the improvement in the lives of our people. It is understanding how you create wealth. So if you live in a house that is not yours, that you have no title to, and you think it's free, and you live there, you're not creating wealth. You're not owning an asset. If or when you die, you have nothing to pass on to anybody. That is the transformation we want. If you don't own anything in the country, you don't care what happens to the country. So when we say we're going to build homes, we want people to own homes, because when they own homes, they own the country. They have an interest in the outcome of the country. They will partake in the elections because they understand who is in charge makes policy. And if you make the wrong policy, that is what's going to happen. Let's give a classic example of the wrong kind of policy. Look at what happened with the first distribution of the homes that were provided by the People's Republic of China. Go and see what happened in Mongay. High rates of delinquency. People not sure if they got it for free or if they're supposed to pay. Nobody maintained it. And then people living in less than ideal conditions. No homeowners association, no security, no insurance. All of those things were put in place under this Minister of Housing in the new program. So that there is a homeowners association. So that we insure the buildings. to make sure that we can create the wealth. We can teach the financial literacy. That we can give the banks and the credit unions an opportunity to support their members by lending to them. So they say it's Susu pension, it's Susu housing too. So the right policies matter. And that is why education is key. That is why financial literacy is key. That is why the type of decisions you make with your money and your assets are important. And that is the type of transformation we are speaking about, Mr. Speaker. So let's take public administration. We understand that you had to go through the structural adjustment program. And at the IMF and the World Bank, the first thing they tell you to do is cut the number of people in the public service. We all understand that. If you can't pay your debts, and if 80 cents of every dollar goes towards paying wages, that's the first thing they come and tell you. If you want me to support, you want your money, you need to cut the wage bill, you need to cut staff. We understand that. The former Prime Minister and former leader of His Majesty's opposition understood that very well. Because you see, Mr. Speaker, that is how NDC was formed. It was about public servants again. George Brizan, Dr. Francis Alexis say, no, don't retrench the public workers. He had a different philosophy, retrench them. They had a bus up. Kill poor Papa Blaze. They left, they created NDC in defense of workers. So you see, Mr. Speaker, that is what the National Democratic Congress is about, in defense of workers. We're not in defense of you remaining poor. We're in defense of you getting and working. We're in defense of you earning. We're in defense of you having your pension. That is why, again, Mr. Speaker, what they said could not be done was done. We created a new pension scheme that has given at least 3,600 employees who hitherto would not have had a government pension, a pension. But it's not just the pension, you know, Mr. Speaker. If you do any statistical analysis worldwide, they will tell you countries with pensions are some of the wealthiest. Because when you create that fund can then be invested in sectors that create more work. And by creating more work, you keep the pension fund alive. Because when you retire, for the pension to be successful, people need to be working and continue to contribute to the fund. But I understand that deferred gratification is a difficult thing sometimes to accept. We want it now. So you think when you're working, you will never get old, you will never get sick. So you always think, I want all my money now. But the reality is you will get old, you will get sick, you will stop work, and you have to plan for that rainy day. And that is what the pension is about. And that is what transformation is about. It's not addresses and social media pictures and whatever the case is. It's about real meaningful change to the lives of people. So ask the hundreds of public servants who got their pension, those who are retiring and getting their pension, the relief. They will live longer. The stress, the anxiety, at least they have funds now to address health issues. Less burden on the health system, less need for them to be hospitalized. You can go and ask them. So you could fool the people sometimes, but you cannot fool them all the time. So when we talk about where is this transformation, we never said it was physical transformation. In fact, I think when I made the phrase, I said we weren't going to run Grenadian, we were going to transform Grenadian. It is the people we are talking about. It is our attitude, our confidence, our self-belief, our creativity, investing in education, investing in healthcare. It's not just about concrete. There's a limit to physical development, and I have to remind us who determines what is developed and what is development. Our roads will never be 4 lanes or 5 lanes. We will never have highways. We are not likely to have skyscrapers and so on. Is that development? Most of the people who live that way are happy to come here for the clean air, for the safety, for the sulfur spring, for the waterfall, for the beach, for the oceans. That is development. preserving and maintaining those things are critical. So when we talk about the environment and the Ministry of Climate Resilience, when we talk about the blue economy, we have to understand the pursuit of material things. According to the Bible, what does it profit a man to gain the whole world and lose his soul? So this is not just about material advancement and roads and bridges and how much money you can put in your pocket. This is about how we sustain Grenada so that come Vision 75, there are Grenadians who have the opportunities that we have, who still have their freedom, who still live in a safe place, who still have Grenadian's Beach and BBC Beach. We can't take those things for granted. Look at the east coast of St. Andrew. The beaches have disappeared. It is sargassum and land. Which government made the decision that we need to stop sand mining and import it? Yes. If you only worry about the cost of material things in money, you will pay a price much greater. So there are no beaches now. The quality of life for people on the east coast of St. Andrews has deteriorated significantly. To get to a beach, you have to go to Leverett, Backway, or come down in St. George's. You think you could put a price on that? You can't. So this isn't about money or material things only. Yes, we want a good quality standard of living. But if you do not engage in practices that are sustainable, the price you will pay will be much, much greater. So I want us to imagine a Grenada without Grenadian's Beach, BBC Beach, or the few remaining beaches in St. George's Northwest or St. David, and explain to me which beautiful Grenada, which pure Grenada people are going to come to. Explain to me how many of us are going to stay here. How many people from the diaspora are going to come back? Those things, in the words of the ad, are priceless. And that is the Grenada we are fighting for. So when we create YE, the Youth Empowerment Agency, and we say we are going to teach Grenadian civics, it's about that. Don't litter. Be respectful to your elders. Stand when you're on the bus and let them sit. It is the importance of family. You think we're going to solve crime and delinquent behavior by locking people up? It is about the parenting classes that the Ministry of Social and Community Development are pioneering and continuing to work. It's about giving young people an opportunity to express themselves through the creative industries, through the steel pan, through the music, through lighting the playing fields, so that they can go out and sweat and play music, etc. This is about values. It's about giving them ambition. That is why I'm unapologetic about saying the Imani program had to be transitioned. Mr. Speaker, I came from humble beginnings, you know. Humble. In my entire time until I got into public service, I never visited the office of a parliamentary representative. And frankly, my goal would be if a young person never has to visit that office, because you want him and his parents through the education system to give them the opportunity to make it on their own rather than going to an MP's office. You think when people come to offices, they're coming in glee? Occasionally someone will come and say you're doing a good job or just checking on you. Most of them are coming in shame, as a last resort, about to give up. The roller coaster of emotions I take when I sit on a Thursday in St. David's, from people who may be suicidal, who have marital problems, who don't have no money, who have this, who want to. This is not some game. This is serious. This is why we do not apologize about coming to Parliament and saying, you have to come to work. This has nothing to do with whether you have a minister's salary or not. You went and fight for the job. You get it to represent the people, come to Parliament and work. So, Mr. Speaker, the Youth Empowerment Agency and the Ministry of Youth in 2026 will begin the pioneering work to transform how we treat with our young people. Because it is not about remedial programs. You heard the dropout rates on the Empower program, 500, half dropping out. Well, why if we spend 18 years educating a young person, we didn't have to bring him into a remedial class? We have to catch him or her before that. If they can't do math, or if they can't read, We have to fix it in primary school or secondary school. We can't let them go through 18 years in the system, frustrate them, and then tell them, okay, we go run a program, we'll give you a weed eater, teach you how to do weed eating, and give you a weed eater until you go and find a work. They come in because they're getting the stipend to come. Because their values have already gone out of whack. They're understanding that in the real world you have to get up and go to work at 8 o'clock, or 7, or 9. Has already been misplaced. So, as the MP for St. Andrew North West said, they say, nah, let me just get a little blind, I prefer the hustle, I prefer the debushing. Why do you go build the country on debushing? So if that is what we are aspiring for, respectfully, not on this side. So, Mr. Speaker, yes, we will continue to invest in education and the transformation of education. That includes things like ensuring the Youth Empowerment Agency is created in law, that we statutarize it, we give it the resources to make sure that we mainstream youth policy throughout the length and breadth of Grenada. So when we think about food security, and we talk about our farmers, if the average age of our farmers are 60 years and above, how are you going to sustain agriculture if there aren't a whole class of people now farming or getting involved in agriculture? So we're just talking. Where's the strategy for food security? Well, if you're not teaching agriculture science in school, who's going to do agricultural science? If you don't have a college for agriculture that you can show the modern techniques of agricultural science, who's going to do it? If we don't give them access to land, where are they going to farm? That is what the Youth Empowerment Agency is about. That is the focus that the Ministry of Youth has to have, not remedial programs to lock young people into below minimum wage, to use them as political fodder to try and win elections. That is why we are phasing out the Imani program. That is why we increased the minimum wage and applied it to them. That is why they have become coaches in our schools, police officers. They've been taken by the private sector, taken by the public service. So yes, the allocation must go down for the Imani program because it is going elsewhere. And so we have to appreciate that. So, Mr. Speaker, we will continue focusing on public administration because the government has to deliver. So in addition to reforms such as the pension, we are going to have renewed emphasis on ensuring that the regularization process continues. The Minister of Finance gave out the statistics on the number of regularization that has taken place. We are going to pay particular emphasis to the health care sector because we recognize there were delays, not of our own making, in relation to regularizing our health care workers, and this is something that we are going to pay particular attention to in the next couple of months to make sure that we can fast-track this process. And this is important because we have earmarked and highlighted education as a key part of this. Our productivity has to be increased and improved. It's a two-way street. We can't pay salary increases, create pension schemes, regularize workers, and our attitude to work and productivity isn't improved. It requires partnership from our workers, the government, the trade unions. And to enhance our productivity, it also means investing in technology and training. And so our move to digitize the government requires us to train the public officers with digital literacy and digital skills. The more we use technology, the greater our efficiencies, the greater the reduction in waste and costs, and it helps to improve corruption, and it helps to improve government revenues. So from the Cabinet Office, the ICT department, we will be looking to ensure that we create the digital agency to help drive those changes that needs to take place in our public service. The same applies to our teachers. We can't give the students laptops and internet and not train our teachers in digital literacy and the ability to deliver digital changes that are required. So all of this is part of the focus on ensuring in a harmonious way that we can improve productivity while maintaining a stable industrial climate within the public sector. And I wish to speak a little bit on the industrial climate. Mr. Speaker, this government has made it clear. We are about workers. We are about protecting the gains made by workers because this country has been built by workers. But we also have to be honest. We have made it clear that as a central government, we do not wish to find ourselves with outdated collective bargaining agreements. The government negotiating team is currently negotiating with the trade unions that represent public workers, teachers, police officers, prisoners, etc. We're in the last month of 2025. These collective bargaining agreements will expire in December of 2025. I've told the government negotiating team that they need to do everything in their power to conclude those negotiations this month, because we would like to pay the salary increases come the 15th of January. I am therefore calling on the unions, the workers, to engage with your unions, to engage with the government negotiating team so that we can conclude the negotiations, so that come the 15th of January, your increases will automatically be built into your next pay cycle. This is also important because the Ministry of Finance is migrating to a new payroll system, and we would wish to avoid double work for your colleagues by having them to migrate and then have to subsequently update the payroll with the new increases. And we are offering increases. We are offering increases even with a budget deficit. We are offering increases even in a very highly uncertain geopolitical climate. Certainty is better than lack of certainty. You may not get everything you're asking for, so we ask for compromise. We are prepared to compromise. We trust our workers will also compromise and recognize that it is important to have the increments, the salary increases fixed for 26, 27, 28, because we really don't know if the situation in the Caribbean deteriorates. Well, I shouldn't say we don't know. If it deteriorates, we know the significant risk it poses to air and sea traffic. And if the airspace is closed and the sea space is closed, well, the tourism industry is closed. And our food security or energy security will be significantly jeopardized. And therefore, the economy will contract. So it's important for us to take the certainty, to negotiate, to conclude, so that as we are in the 2026 cycle and it's upcoming, we can pay the money now. We are discouraging this retroactivity. It is not good, it is bad industrial practice, and the government intends to lead by example. To our statutory bodies, which has billions of assets at their disposal, we are also encouraging boards, management, and workers to do the same. I met with Port Authority workers in the last couple of weeks. It's brought to my attention that there are collective bargaining agreements outstanding since 2020. Both management, board, unions need to do better. If the central government, which employs thousands of workers, could have its collective bargaining process even in the midst of COVID and all these things current, it is not acceptable, and I'm putting all of the statutory bodies on notice for you not to have your collective bargaining agreements current. This practice needs to end. But we also need the partnership, and we need the unions. And the unions need to make themselves available. I know sometimes they have capacity issues because some of them represent several institutions and it's the same negotiator. But they also have to build their capacity. Encourage some of the shops to take negotiation courses, mediation courses. Retain outside help to help so that we can accelerate and fast track and improve the industrial climate. When collective bargaining agreements are outstanding for 5 and 6 and 8 years, you forget what you're even disputing over. Workers are disgruntled because how could they 5 years pass, no salary increase? That is not the ethos of this administration. We will discourage it and encourage all statutory bodies to ensure that they devote the time and attention to address the HR and collective bargaining agreements that are required. I also want to urge them, they are all accountable under the Public Finance Management Act to the Ministry of Finance. And the Ministry of Finance has the authority to set guidelines for the wage negotiations. Please comply with them. Do not go off on a frolic, agree things you have no authority to agree, and then come back and ask the cabinet to approve that which you didn't have authority to approve, and then create more discord in the industrial climate. So seek and obtain the guidelines from the Ministry of Finance. We will give the Ministry of Finance the mandate to respond promptly so that we can improve the industrial climate and productivity throughout the length and breadth of Grenada. And I hope the private sector will also take a cue from the government, given that we are partners with them in this issue. So, Mr. Speaker, it would be remiss of me as the Minister for Disaster Management not to briefly touch on this issue. One, we know because we've experienced it ourselves and we have seen what has happened in Jamaica. Disaster preparedness, disaster resilience has to be embedded in all of our behaviors. There is no more 50-year cycle. And the only way to mitigate the loss and damage is through preparation. We will therefore proceed with the completion of the statutorization of NADBA in the first half of 2026. We have names for a board. We expect cabinet approval. And once that happens, we then anticipate that the board will begin the process of taking control of NADMA and making sure that we can make it a lot more sure-footed in addressing disaster in its entirety, not responding to hurricanes, and preparation. And we are getting some rain now, thankfully, but the Met Office has indicated that we've had far below average rainfall for this rainy season, going back comparatively to 2009. And when that happened, we had a pretty bad drought the following year. So we need to begin to prepare now. And that is what the resilience is about. That is what ensuring every house has a water tank is about. The same for energy costs. When you talk about what structural changes can we make to reduce energy, is ensuring every house has solar panels on it so that we use the resource that we have. Those are the structural changes that we need to embark upon. In 2024, we had bushfires in Bolio and so on because of how dry it was. And then the hurricane came. We've had landslides. We had an unfortunate death where a teacher died in a car, drowning. These are issues we need to pay attention to and make sure by our own behavior we take disaster preparedness and disaster resilience seriously. And that is why we will resource NADMA more fully to make sure that we continue to improve our behavior in that area to ensure that we mitigate the risk posed by our own challenges. A lot of the flooding of the bridges and so on arises because the bamboo is cut and dumped in the river. And then when the rain comes, it brings it down, it blocks, and we then have the flooding. So a lot of those things need to be done. The reforestation needs to happen. Again, those are some of the mitigation effects that we have to address. Or flooding. If we don't have catchment areas to slow down the velocity of water, then the more we build up in the coastal areas, is the more they will flood and the more they will cause ecological disaster. So to Dr. Walters and the team at NADMA, P.S. McQuilkin, I signal my appreciation for the work you've been doing in this process of statutorizing NADMA. I want to emphasize, Mr. Speaker, you see, there's all this talk about the CRIF money, the CRIF money, the CRIF money. I don't understand if people don't understand insurance. This is not money that dropped from the sky. For 17 years, the government had to pay premiums to the insurance to recover this money. So when you get it, you not just go and spend it willy-nilly, because you have to continue paying the premiums to get further coverage. So yes, some of the funds have been spent to do exactly what needed to be done. And well spent, as the Minister of Finance has said. But it's important to emphasize, Mr. Speaker, that we have built in our own resilience. When we got into office, on paper, there was supposed to be a contingency fund. On paper, where a certain percentage of funds from the investment migration or CBI revenues were supposed to be put aside for contingency. There was no such fund in reality, and there was zero sum in the account. We came to Parliament, amended the law to reduce the amount, and we've since complied. So there's $61 million in that account sitting at the Eastern Caribbean Central Bank. We did not touch it for Hurricane Beryl. So it is there. So we have the buffer, at least one of the buffers, in the event we face another climatic shock or disaster. That is what prudent, resilient fiscal management is about. So we understand the risk and the challenges we face. The Minister for Agriculture and his team, P.S. Jessamy, have worked with NADMA to develop a national food security policy as part of our disaster preparedness, because we recognize, coming out of COVID, that that is one of the biggest vulnerabilities of this island. If the port is closed, or if shipping is compromised, where are we getting the food from? So yes, MP for the Tongue of St. George, we are working on ensuring we understand how much food reserves, how much fuel reserve we need, whether it's 3 months or 6 months, so that we can begin the process of procuring, buying, working with the private sector to stockpile food and to enhance the domestic production of food. That is why we brought in the animals. That is why we're building the hatchery. That is why we are giving out so many seedlings for farming. That is why the tissue culture lab in Haribo was rebuilt, because we recognize we need to do those things to enhance food security. So yes, again, if you don't read, if you don't pay attention, if you don't come to the town hall meetings, you will not know that these things are taking place. So it's important, Mr. Speaker, for us to appreciate that this young, inexperienced children in Pampers, they know what they're doing. They don't like to hear these entities. I probably don't like to hear them either. But the IMF wouldn't say that Grenada's economy has had a remarkable rebound in spite of Hurricane Beryl if the team didn't know what he was doing. We are more confident than the IMF that in fact GDP growth will be greater. Unemployment would not have been reduced to historic lows of 7.5% if this team didn't know what it was doing. We don't run and hide and go on no boat during the hurricane. We stay with the people at the NADMA headquarters. We stay on the ground with them. We are part of the volunteer team. We're picking up the galvanized with them. We're helping carry the load with them because we come from the people. Yes. So if we didn't know what we're doing, the people would not want us with them. We are not afraid to tell the truth, even if sometimes it may be hard to accept or it may be unpleasant. So yes, when they ask where is the transformation, if you're blind, I have cognitive dissonance, we can't help you. If you think yesterday was a bright sunny day, we can't help you. But what we can help the Grenadian people with is ensuring that we continue to serve them, we continue to work on their behalf, we continue to support the Minister of Finance, the team at the Ministry of Finance, the budget team, the Accountant General's office, the Attorney General's office, all of the members of the Senior Management Board, and thank and appreciate them for the enormous work they do in ensuring, critically, Mr. Speaker, that notwithstanding that they had to present a budget in March of this year, as a result of the shock caused by Hurricane Beryl, that by December 1 of the same year, they had another budget fully prepared and ready to go to continue serving the interests of the people. That is testimony to the fact that if you have inspired leadership, if you have an honest, earnest broker, that people will be motivated to work, that people will answer the call to duty, and that they will serve their country. So, Mr. Speaker, I can assure you that myself and this team remains committed to strengthening parliamentary democracy. We don't absent ourselves and say it's inconvenient to come to Parliament, or that our schedule is getting in the way. This is our job. We applied for it. We are happy to do it. And with that, Mr. Speaker, I wish you, the clerk, acting, management of Parliament, a happy Yuletide season. I trust the good Lord will bless you, your family, the families of the staff abundantly. And I wish my own family, supporters, friends, non-supporters, critics, armchair politicians, social media bajons, a happy, prosperous, healthy 2026 I look forward to you continuing to engage, to support, and finally, as I said, of paramount importance, the people of St. David. I wish you and your families a Merry Christmas. I look forward to doing my part to make the Christmas as merry as can be, and I look forward to serving all of you in 2026. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
Hi everyone, thanks for checking out the Bub Report's social media pages. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch our weekly live show, follow our Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram pages, and also subscribe to our YouTube channel. You can catch repeat episodes on Wednesdays at 4 and 5 p.m. respectively on CRFM Radio and GBN TV in Grenada. We are also viewed on Sundays at 8 p.m. on WPG 10 throughout the Caribbean. Thanks for watching.